I created the heavens and the earth, a perfect harmony, a timeless birth. I shaped the stars, I set them free, a world of wonder, a song for me. I formed the man, the dust took flight. I gave the woman a shared delight. Together they stood, my breath, their frame, a mirrored heart, a living flame.
All right, here we go. Sorry, it took me a while to actually find Matthew 24. So where are we in the timeline? So this is the timeline report. We're currently, I think we're kind of in this period of time. So I cannot imagine that that the fulfillment of all the prophecy in the end time is going to take more than 14 years from the go sign, right? The Revelation 12 sign seems to be the go sign. And I can make an argument that it's when the song in heaven changed, because for all of these, since the beginning of time, it's been singing about a coming redeemer. And now that song has changed to where we're basically going through the different events that are leading to that final moment when he comes, like the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, the firmament shows his handiwork, day unto day utter speech, night unto night shows knowledge. If you continue reading that, it talks about the bridegroom coming out of his chamber. I think that's the time we're in, and it's a 14-year period of time. And I think it's so appropriate because that kind of matches with Israel, with Jacob working for his two wives, Rachel and Leah. Initially, he was working for Rachel. He got a bait and switch to where he ended up having to work for another 7 years. And, all of this is just, there's so many shadows and mirror images of everything that's leading up to Yeshua's final return. I don't necessarily believe, like the Jews, that the Messiah is here already. The Jewish belief is that every generation a Messiah is raised up. Somebody who has the potential to be the Messiah. I personally believe that, Jesus died and ascended and went to go prepare a place for us. And he's been building the temple by spirits. He started a movement that got people centered around loving God and loving their neighbors. That temple has been being built this entire time, and he will soon return to put the capstone on it. And we're getting to that point where he's going to return. One of the best candidates for when he's going to return is probably seal number 6. And that's based on Matthew 24. So we're going to read a little bit more today. So if you start here, it says, Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. I believe this is the Al-Aqsa Flood. Now, the reason I think that, because I know that there are, the religious scholars who are far smarter than me will say that this is referring to the temple being built and then the Antichrist going into the temple and declaring himself God, or bringing a pig in there or something, because that's what Nero did, 2,100 years ago or whatever, 2,400 years ago. I'm inclined to believe that this is actually referring to Israel being surrounded, the abomination of desolation. I get that because of Luke 21:20, which says this is a parallel record to Matthew 24. But when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then know that its desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So this is what happened for seal number 4. Seal number 4 on October 7th, 2023. That was the Al-Aqsa Flood. Israel was surrounded, and it was. I need to have. I think I need to have a quick button to refer to. I'll find the description. I'll find the video that goes through and describes so that we can refer to this from time to time. Iran and Hamas and Israel's enemies had planned to wipe Israel off the face of the map. That's why it says, therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation, it's an abomination because if you mess with Israel, you're touching the apple of God's eye. And it's an abomination to do any. Actually, you know what? Oh, I just got rid of the video from Dennis Prager, I think. I did. I had a video from Dennis Prager where he goes through and he talks about any nation that's ever set itself against Israel, God destroys. So hence the abomination of desolation. But like it says, when the dragon cast out the flood after the woman, the earth swallowed up the flood, and it did not destroy Israel. Hamas kind of jumped the gun early and went in, and they only ended up killing 1,200 people and taking 2,500, or not 2,500, 250 hostage. Don't quote me on those numbers. But you know what I'm referring to, the Al-Aqsa Flood. So I believe this is referring to seal number 4. So this is seal number 4. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down to take anything out of his house, and let not him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. There were people at a music festival that this could apply to during that time. But woe to those who are pregnant. Oh man, the atrocities they did to pregnant women and babies. But woe to the women who are pregnant and to those who are nursing babies in those days, and pray that your flight may not be in winter or on the Sabbath. So I think that's seal number 4. And then seal number 5, for then there will be great tribulation. So I think this is describing seal number 5. This is just a hunch. I could be wrong, but based on what the order that Jesus laid out the events in Matthew 24, it seems to fit the order of the seals that are listed in Revelation 6. So you got seal number 4. This is the 4th seal. When he opened the 4th seal, I heard the voice of the 4 living creatures saying, "Come and see." So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed him. This is the first seal that has 2 parts to it, which it's interesting because there are 2 parts to the Al-Aqsa Flood, because you have the initial Al-Aqsa Flood, and then you have Operation Iron Sword, which is Israel responding to Hamas because they didn't destroy them. So I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and the name of him who sat on it was Death, and Hades followed with him, and power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth to kill with sword, with hunger, with death, and by the beasts of the earth. I don't know how to ever measure when this is fulfilled. Power was given to them over 1/4 of the earth. It'd be interesting to look at this in the original to find out if there's any more specifics we can learn from this. But it's entirely possible that 1/4 of the earth has been killed since that time, because we just don't have any way to really measure. Do you know how many people die, and how many people, the increase in death that has happened over the last 8 years? It's nuts. The amount of people that die. It's absolutely insane. People who've died from fentanyl overdoses, people who have died from conflicts. I mean, one of the things that Trump keeps bringing up is 7,000 people die every week between Russia and Ukraine. death is off the charts. So anyway, so I believe that this is seal number 5. So what seal number 5 says, when he opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar the souls of those who had been slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? I'm hoping that this is what the Great Tribulation is that it's judgment and avenging blood on those who dwell on the earth. But it says, Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So it doesn't say that this isn't when judgment starts to take place. There's a couple of things we can infer from this. Number one, those who are dead are going to be dead for a little while longer. And they're given white robes. Don't know exactly what white robes are, but that's an interesting thing to key off of and go do some research to see if we can learn anything about the white robes and if it's relevant, if it's not indicative of something that happens on this day. But they should rest a little longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So there's clearly some people who are going to die, and that's an unfortunate. It's not something to look forward to, that's for sure. But there are definitely those who are under certain pressure. Who, I would argue that Charlie Kirk was a martyr. Probably some more Charlie Kirks. Anyway, so let's read about this over here. For then there will be great tribulation, such as not been since the beginning of the world until this time, no, nor ever shall be. Right now, the fire between the left and the right, it could pop off to civil war at any time. And unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. So this tells us that it's going to be pretty bad and that it's not going to go as long as it could have gone. I think what that's referring to is the time between seal number 5 and seal number 6 is pretty short. It's about 6 months, which if there is civil war, nobody wants it to last not even 6 months. Yeah. But then we've got a whole world of things, in seal number 6 that even with the wording here, what's interesting about this wording is such has never been since the beginning of the world until this time, nor ever shall be. I don't know if this means that everybody is going to be touched with terror or tribulation. I imagine we're going to experience tribulation in different ways. Some people, the tribulation may just be supply chains are interrupted. So as long as you're prepared, you'll get through this period of time without too much problem, without too much tribulation. Those who are not prepared in any way, shape, or form, if the supply chains are disrupted due to civil war, you may suffer far more than the average person. You may have to go out and find some way to feed your family. Could even be just water. If water is turned off more than 3 days and you don't have any water stocked up, that could be a problem for you. So the tribulation you experience may be, dependent upon how well you're prepared. If you're prepared, because it does say in Revelation, when it talks about the church of Philadelphia, that they will be kept from the trials that are coming on the whole world. I would imagine that this is part of the trials coming on the whole world. Could be wrong about that. But it's interesting. So it says, such has not been since the beginning of the world until this time. So I don't know what qualifies for that, but it's not anything I want to look forward to. But it is what it is. It's what's written, and I can't deny what's written. Until this time, no, nor shall ever be, and unless those days were shortened, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days will be shortened. This is why I think it's only going to last 6 months. Then, and I could be wrong. That's a total guess just based on the seals. I think it's a good guess, but it's still a guess. Then if anyone says to you, so this is what's interesting. I think this kind of informs how the Great Tribulation is going to be. And this makes so much more sense now that we have deep fakes with artificial intelligence. I think you can imagine how this could potentially go. That if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. So if they're making videos about Jesus returning, don't believe it. They're probably deep fakes. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. This doesn't mean the elect will be deceived. It just says that if it were possible to deceive the elect, these are going to be so good that it would deceive them. And I imagine that some of the smartest elect will probably be tempted. See, I have told you beforehand. There we got that throwback to John 14:29. He tells us these things beforehand so that when they happen, we will believe. See, I have told you beforehand. Therefore, if they say to you, look, he is in the desert, do not go out. Or look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. In other words, if you're so convinced beyond, you know, reason, and you're so tempted to go fly to the desert or go fly somewhere to where you think Jesus is, don't do it. It's very clear. Jesus tells you don't do it. All right, so that is seal number 5. And then here we have the seal number 6. For as lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For wherever the carcass is, there the eagles will be gathered together. Which it's interesting that carcass is used here after the Great Tribulation, which implies there may be a lot of death during this period of time. Eagle here is actually a form of vulture. For wherever the carcass is, there the vultures will be gathered together. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven. So whatever that sign is, it's not going to appear until what I believe is the magnetic pole shift. And then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds. So the four winds, you've got, which it's interesting that there's 4 living creatures, each one in the corner. I often wonder if this isn't the 4 winds. Leo, Taurus, Ophiuchus, Aquila. So you gather from the 4 winds. Could be wrong about that, but I wonder. He will gather his elect from the 4 winds and from one end of heaven to the other end to the other. So it's almost saying like top to bottom, left to right, like everywhere. And in other words, it's a way of saying to gather his elect wherever they are. And then, so that seems to be where we are in the timeline. These things have passed, I believe, and it seems like we're coming to the end of seal number 4, which, to give you an idea of what the expectation could be like, the start of the pandemic ramped up slowly. It just started in, it really didn't get really problematic until 2 weeks to slow the spread. It had come into the public's awareness before 2 weeks to slow the spread. Likewise with Joe Biden, a lot of those who study eschatology think that this is like global world war, seal number 2, because it says power to take peace. They assume that means global world war. But it turned out that this was just the day they declared Joe Biden the president, and he gave the first vaccine. It wasn't until later that he really took peace from the earth. So we can learn from these seals, what the Great Tribulation might be like. So this day could just be the spark that lights the flame. Whether it's eliminating the filibuster so that the Trump administration's gloves are taken off and they can finally start prosecuting people, or if it's the spark of the Civil War, where people stop protesting, and it escalates to significantly more violence. Whatever it is, it's called the Great Tribulation. I think that's what we're looking at. And I hope that it's limited to 6 months, because it sounds like it's going to be pretty bad. So suffice it to say, if I were you, I would make sure that you've got toilet paper, make sure you've got water, make sure you've got, even if you don't have a lot of money, there are ways to prepare so that you can have nourishments. Canned food never expires, so you can never go wrong with buying canned food. So go find it cheap somewhere. Tons of it. Bread, and it's pretty easy to make bread. Just flour, sugar, and water, and yeasts. Flour, sugar, and water will do it, but yeast if you want it to rise. Beans are a good thing to bulk up on. Just add water and have yourself some bean soup, and then get seasonings, salt and sugar. Get your basics. Just think through the very basics, and you can stock up a lot of food for very small amounts of money. And if you don't have the money to stock up, you can go to food banks and get canned food. You know, food banks are a good source to get supplies. They'll usually give you flour and rice and beans, little bags of lentils. One little bag of lentil can feed your family for quite a long time. And you don't need as much food as you think you need. You can easily go 2 to 3 weeks without eating, depending on how much body fat you have. That's not true for everybody. Some people really do require, some kind of carbs or protein, depending on your physical condition. But the average person who's relatively healthy can typically go 2 to 3 weeks without food. So while the rest of the world might be freaking out within the first week or two, you can take stock of what you have and plan appropriately. Make sure if you do store water in bulk that you bleach it. Research how much bleach it takes to make your water safe. I know we've got 55-gallon drums of water that I need to go dump and refill them and bleach them, because stuff can grow in there. But even if you don't, you could always boil it and filter it too. But it's better to store it in the best shape possible, because water does actually go bad. So you want to make sure you rotate out your stock of water if you've got a bunch of water. But yeah, I mean, like, there's no reason not to prepare, especially given what's going on in the world today right now. Things seem to be heating up, I mean, this pattern seems like it really points towards, seal number 5. If this isn't the start of seal number 5, I'm going to have to do a serious reevaluation on the eclipses, because it will mean that this is not a mirror image. So if nothing really happens on February 17th, then we're going to have to be doing some recalculation for sure. Definitely going to need to do some recalculation. Right now, this just makes the most sense because it's perfectly symmetrical. So, the pattern, and, this pattern informs this pattern. So it could be that seal number 5 is actually in August, and that we just got the day count wrong. But this is the earliest eclipse, which fits the pattern. So if nothing happens on this day and everything just kind of mellows out, the next day that I would be looking for would be August 12th to be seal number 5. But the fact that we have these day counts between these ones, where we also had the living creatures say, come and see, I'm inclined to believe that this is probably the pattern. But again, I could be wrong. I'm just working off of data. I'm not working off special information. It's not like I've heard a voice giving me this data. This is just based on observation. I think most of you guys know that.
Thank you for watching this clip from the Two Witnesses Live. Catch us Monday through Friday at 4:30. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you all there.